And at this moment, we will move forward with introducing Ms. Desiree Walker. She is a survivor extraordinaire, uh, two-time breast cancer victor, health educator, cancer patient advocate, and support group facilitator. Many of you got to see her yesterday in the survivor panel, and so we want to bring her here today to really share her story live. She's got a lot to say. Thank you so much, Ms. Walker, for joining us today.
Good evening, and thank you again for the invitation to be a part of this important conversation, as well as your introduction. I'd like to start off by sharing a bit about my perspective as a breast cancer victor, but also as a patient advocate, why the movement towards health equity in clinical trials is critical. I am pleased to celebrate my 20th cancerversary from my initial diagnosis, and I look forward to celebrating my 12th cancerversary in a few months. And the 12th cancerversary is really important because when I was diagnosed the second time, I was tested as HER2 positive. And many of you might know that being HER2 positive, it's an aggressive form of breast cancer. But I am thankful for the discovery of Herceptin, which is the drug that I was given to address the overexpression of the HER2 protein. And so for me, although I have not had the opportunity to participate in a clinical trial, I have been involved in research. And I just want to say that some of the things, I appreciate the comments and the information that Dr. Newman, as well as Dr. McCaskill Stevens have provided. But from an advocate perspective, I want to say that I think one of the big issues is that there's still a lot of myths and misconceptions, not only on the patient side, but also on the provider side. And because these things I look at them as the elephant in the room that aren't often talked about, I'm truly appreciative of this series in order to create the platform so that we can have open and honest conversation, as well as I am hoping that I'm not necessarily preaching to the choir, but there are individuals who are thinking about becoming health equity advocates, allies, and activists. And something that is said today, they will now be sparked to move forward and join this community who are really trying to move the needle forward and see a shift. I think it's important to acknowledge that there are clinicians that believe underrepresented groups in research are a challenge. And I think it's safe to say that anyone who is experiencing a potential challenge will avoid it. And so we really need to have a shift in our thinking in order to address that piece. I think it's also a reality that some clinicians feel that individuals who are underrepresented are not ideal participants. And yes, we do know that transportation can be an issue. We do know that some individuals, don't have great support systems. But I do think that it is so important to not just think about what is a problem, but or a potential problem, but actually be proactive and think about what solutions are available to make this a possibility for all individuals to participate in trials if that is the better option for them. I do think that it's also safe to say that yes, there is a lot of mistrust as it relates to the medical system, but we have to actually talk about what we've learned, what we know, and what systems and patient safeguards have been put in place. Because I do believe that many individuals are not aware of the central IRB or the institutional IRB at all of the different hospitals. They are not aware of the informed consent and its purpose. But I also think that it's important for not only the clinician researchers involved, but the whole clinical trial team to really start to understand the community of those that are underrepresented in order to know how to talk to them, to understand what's important to them, and to be able to address whatever needs they have that could potentially be the barriers to them participating. For me, I also think that it's an important thing for us to think about, talk about, and address education, because oftentimes many of the brown and black people and the Latinos tend to seek treatment in their community and not necessarily at comprehensive cancer centers, and understanding the value of getting access to those places. And yes, I know insurance is a thing, but again, I think we need to really start to look at all of the issues that exist regarding policy as well, in order to start to have the changes that we need to have so that science is truly advancing for all of us and not some of us. And a lot of misinformation, as we've seen in the recent times of COVID-19, there's so much misinformation circulating. And each and every one of us has an opportunity to try and educate all of the individuals that we come in contact so that they can understand what is evidence-based versus what's hearsay. I'd also, like to say that yes, it is an issue when you go to the hospital and you can't see anyone that looks like you, and no one really takes any time to understand who you are and what is important to you as they prescribe treatment, etc. But I think that it's also important when we have materials, patient-facing materials, that people see images that look like them so that they can actually feel that this is an option for them, as opposed to this is for the others. That often is an issue in as well. I also think that it's important for us to acknowledge patient-doctor communication. It is definitely lacking at times. And I want to say from my own personal experience that although I was told I was early stage disease, I truly believe that it would have been important for my doctor to raise the idea of clinical trials, to say that that was a potential option if things down the road changed. But clinical trials are often not talked about until you have advanced disease or you've actually run out of different lines of treatment. And that is one of the reasons why skepticism tends to come into play, because oftentimes individuals did not even know about clinical trials, that it was an option or considered treatment versus standard of care. And so I really think that it's important that we really work on trying to build the trust. Trust comes from communication and getting to know an individual, so that you can make sure that whatever's on their mind, they will potentially talk to you, share that, and they will look at you as a trusted resource as versus someone who's just trying to make them do something that they're extremely uncomfortable with. And so with that, I'm just going to stop, because I know we have a robust conversation that's going to be coming forward with lots of questions as I see them coming into the chat.